up Attorney Darrell Atkinson to come and share with us from his perch around some of the bills that we'll be talking about today. So without further ado, help me welcome to the podium Attorney Darrell Atkinson.
Dennis likes to throw that attorney stuff around, but in my estimation, I think what gives me the most credibility to come and talk to you all about these particular policy issues that we're all concerned about and that we're all here to fight for is that I'm a person formerly incarcerated. I use those words purposely. I'm not an ex-offender. I'm not an ex-convict. I'm not an ex-felon, because those are pejorative labels. They're negative labels that seek to define me by one static moment in life. I'm more than the sum total of my worst mistakes. I've done some other stuff besides get involved with the criminal justice system. So I think it's very important when we're going around talking to our elected officials to be very cognizant of the language that we use, because language frames the debate. Any lawyer in the room, any advocate in the room knows the first thing that you got to do, you got to humanize your client. You have to humanize your constituency. And using language that continues to stigmatize people, that continues to label people for the worst things that they've ever done, frames the debate in a negative way. And it makes it much easier for folks to do bad stuff to you. And history has been a wonderful teacher in that regard. So what language should we use? How about people language? People who've been in prison or jail. People formerly incarcerated. People with criminal records. But the operative word is people. We are not the sum total of the worst things we've ever done. So 3 policy initiatives that I've been tasked to talk to you all about are ban the box, the reclassification and expunction of misdemeanor possession of marijuana, and raising the age of juvenile jurisdiction. And the last one, I have to tell you, I'm certainly not an expert in that regard. I'm more of a cheerleader. There have been many juvenile justice advocates who can talk about that particular issue. I want to recognize Senator Ellie Kennard. If you can come to the, would you like to give a few words, Senator?
Thank you very much. I'm just pleased to be here, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I see a lot of my own local hometown folks who've been working hard on these issues. You know, there is such an atmosphere right now of what I call meanness in the air, just meanness. We saw that last night where they're trying to drug test people who are applying for welfare TANF, temporary assistance for needy families, whether they have any idea or not that they have used drugs, and they're going to make them pay for it up front. And what we have to counteract this atmosphere of meanness, and of course the one that I hope somebody will talk about is the voter ID, where they would take away for 5 years your right to restore your citizenship. Then you have to go in front of the elections board. This meanness is counteracted by the hope that I see among you today.
That's right.
And this hope is what's going to carry us forward out of these bad times. And we're going to prevail because hope and the work that you're doing is going to change attitudes, change minds, and change hearts. So keep working, and thank you for all you're doing.
Just to quickly piggyback off Senator Kennard's comments, folks who got a few gray hairs in their head can remember our most potent social movements were birthed out of some of our most desperate times. And so don't get discouraged. Even though it may seem that we are in a desperate time right now, we're at the beginning of a movement, y'all. And be encouraged by that. So the 3 things I'm here to talk to you about: ban the box. Anybody who got a criminal record knows how important this particular policy change is. If you've ever filled out an application and had to check that box, you know how the routine goes, right? You check the box, you give it to the HR manager, they look at it, they see that you've checked criminal history, that you have a criminal history, they put it in file 13 and they never call you back. What ban the box is about, it's about delaying the criminal record check until someone can be assessed for all of their skills and qualifications until someone can be assessed by truly who they are at this moment in time, not who they were when they committed a criminal offense. So what HB 425 does, it delays the criminal record check until a conditional offer of employment has been made. Once that's done, no conviction history will be considered unless there's a substantial relationship between that conviction history and the job that you are going to engage in or that you're trying to engage in. So for example, they look at things like evidence of rehabilitation. They look at how old you are when you committed the particular offense. They also look at, is there a direct relationship between my underlying criminal conduct and the prospective job? So for example, I'll give you an example of direct relationship. If I'm applying to be the comptroller and I have a past history of embezzlement, it might not be the best fit for me, right? There's a direct relationship. Even though me as an advocate, I would say, you know what? The passage of time, that's over 10 or 15 years old, evidence of rehabilitation, it should overcome that relationship. But nevertheless, there is a direct relationship. Now, what about I was convicted of a nonviolent drug crime. I had a $20 crack robbery 10 years ago. And I'm trying to drive the forklift and shipping and receiving. And I can give you letters from my AA and NA sponsor. I can bring you letters of recommendation from my pastor or from someone notable in my community. That criminal record history isn't nearly as relevant because the relationship is tenuous. And all we're saying with ban the box, we aren't eliminating criminal record history checks because they have their place. We're saying let's delay this until later on in the process where someone can be assessed on all of their skills and qualifications. So make sure to talk about ban the box to the folks that you go visit today. Second issue I want to talk to you about is the reclassification of possession of marijuana less than a half an ounce. And really more broadly, the reclassification of minor misdemeanors. In doing this work over the past few years, what we've come to realize is that we have to advocate both at the back end of the system, more clean slate, more expungements, more certificates of relief, more public policy changes like ban the box. But we also have to advocate for changes on the front end of the system as well. We have to turn down the faucet and prevent people from ever getting involved with the criminal justice system. That's what reclassification of minor misdemeanors does. And there's 3 reasons why you should support it. Number 1, it's going to unclog our court system. As someone who frequently has to appear in district courts across this state, our dockets are full of minor misdemeanor crimes that are really diverting resources and attention from our judicial actors, our judges, our prosecutors, our police. They're diverting critical resources that should be spent on more serious offenses. So let's reclassify these things. That way they aren't in the criminal courts. We can levy a sanction as a civil penalty, like a traffic ticket. And folks won't be burdened with the criminal record. And that's point number 2. Particularly when we think about, and it feeds into raising the age of juvenile jurisdiction as well. Particularly when we think about young people being saddled with a criminal record at an early age. It's so debilitating. I talk to client after client after client who might have done something when they were 17, 18, 19 years old. And here they are, 36, 37, 38, still being haunted by that criminal record. Still being held back from something they did when all of the social science research, all of the psychology shows that their frontal lobe wasn't even completely developed. They couldn't really appreciate the wrongfulness of their behavior. The Supreme Court said that, y'all. Darryl didn't say that, the Supreme Court said that. So let's really think about how we can divert more people from being involved in the criminal justice system in the first place. And the final reason you should support it, we have to begin to change the paradigm with the way that we deal with drug policy in this state and in this country. We've criminalized addiction now. I'm going to say it again. We've criminalized addiction. Now, if folks believe in the disease concept of alcohol and drug abuse, people are merely acting out of their disease. Do we criminalize a diabetic because they need insulin? Do we criminalize an epileptic because they have a seizure? Folks who are addicted to chemicals use chemicals because they're acting out of their disease. We should treat it as a public health issue and not as a criminal justice issue. Drug crimes, not trafficking, possession, compromise the largest percentage of people who end up on probation in our state, over 20%. They compromise the largest percentage of people who end up in the Department of Corrections, over 17%. So this is an economic efficiency issue. We can save dollars this way. This is a public health issue. We can address the underlying issues that are driving this criminality in the first place by diverting these resources and being able to provide more treatment and prevention. And finally, this is a public safety issue. Because if we can divert people from ever having contact with the criminal justice system and having those barriers that are triggered, misdemeanor marijuana arrest triggers over 100 collateral consequences where you can't get employment and student loans and a litany of other benefits that actually end up making you more criminogenic. As Dennis says, and I'm gonna borrow one of your famous lines, Dennis, when you make it real hard to do the right thing, you make it real easy to do the wrong thing. You know, the criminologists like to talk about criminogenic tendencies, but we can just bring it home, you know, around the kitchen table, right? Let's make it easier for people to do the right thing. Last thing I want to talk to you about is raising the age of juvenile jurisdiction. North Carolina is an outlier in the country, one of only 2 states that automatically prosecute 16 and 17-year-olds as adults. 16 and 17-year-olds. Now, New York is the other state, but New York, at least they can transfer them back into the juvenile justice system. North Carolina, no. Misdemeanors, felonies, you're automatically prosecuted as an adult. And many times, what we're finding is when those folks go to county jail, they're being housed with grown folks. So if their criminogenic tendencies weren't high before, they're going to be high when they leave because they're graduating, y'all. They just ain't graduating from school. They graduating to the penitentiary. This is a social justice issue. This is, once again, an economic efficiency issue because if we think long term, if we can divert these young people from ever being involved in the system, we really improve their chances at being successful in the long term over the future of their lives. And I truly believe that they are no throwaway kids. And we shouldn't be throwing our kids. And that's what they are. This is another instance where we have to be very intentional about our language. They aren't juvenile delinquents. They aren't super predators. They're children. Children that are being prosecuted as 16 and 17-year-olds and being thrust into the adult criminal justice system to have criminal records mar them for the rest of their lives, to have collateral consequences attached at the age when they really can't appreciate the wrongfulness of their actions. So those are the 3 things that I wanted to speak to you all about. And I really want to leave you with an encouraging word, that we are at the precipice of our movement and that we're really going to effectuate some change in North Carolina. Thank you for your time.